Philippines Ancestral Houses.
Ancestral houses of the Philippines or heritage houses are homes owned and preserved by the same family or several generations as part of Filipino family culture. It corresponds to a long tradition by Filipino people of venerating ancestors and elders. Houses could be simple houses or mansions.
Region 1. In the Ilocos region, the historic city of Vigan is the best preserved Spanish colonial settlement in the country. The Secuya Mansion is a wonderful example of Bahay na Bato architecture prevalent during the later Spanish colonial era. The typical structure consisted of a ground floor made of stone or brick and mortar with the upper floors of wood. No cement, no hollow blocks, no steel bars. The Marcos Museum and Mausoleum, also known as the Ferdinand E. Marcos Prudential Center, is located in the city center of Batac, Ilocos Norte.
Padre Burgos House. This museum is the ancestral house and birthplace of priest patriot Father Jose Burgos, known as Padre Burgos House. It is one of the notable historic structure of Vigan, the capital of the province of Ilocos Sur. It is a two-story structure located near the provincial capital and close to St. Paul's Metropolitan Cathedral. It was renovated by the Filipinas Foundation Incorporated and inaugurated on May 3, 1975. In January 1989, a contract of leave was executed by the Ilocos Sur Historical and Cultural Foundation Incorporated, leasing the memorabilia for 50 years and turning over the administration to the National Museum. Region 3. In Central Luzon, there are two historical town centers declared by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines as historic town centers in the region, namely the Malolos Heritage Town in Bulacan, declared on August 15, 2001, and the city of San Fernando Heritage District in Pampanga was declared in 2004. Malolos Heritage Town. The Jose Cuangco Mansion in Malolos City, Bulacan, is the old and original house of Jose Chuyonko Cuangco. He was the former representative of the first district of the province of Tarlac from 1934 to 1946. He is one of the roots of the Cuangco clan. He is the father of the first woman president of the Philippines, Corazon Aquino, and grandfather of former President Benigno Aquino III. This historical landmark is situated on Aseo del Congreso Street, meters from Barasuin Church and Casa Real Shrine. Doña Alberta Oitangcoy. The Oitangcoy Santos House, also known as the Museum of the Women of Malolos, is an early 20th century Bainabato structure along Reyes Street, formerly known as Calle Electricidad, in Barangay Santo Niño in the city of Malolos, Bulacan, in the Republic of the Philippines. The home belonged to Paulino Santos, a proprietaryo and cabeza de barangay, and Alberta Oitancoy Santos, who was the leader of the women of Malolos and is revered for her contribution to Philippine women's rights, the fight for Philippine independence, and large part of Malolos' traditional cuisine during the Spanish and American colonial period. The house was built and completed in 1914 after the original 1890 structure was destroyed by a fire in 1910. The Oitang Coy Santos house is currently owned by Josefa Santos de Bahia and Lourdes Santos Herrera, granddaughters of Paulino Santos and Alberto Oitang Coy Santos, and is under the care of non-profit organization, the Women of Malolos Foundation Incorporated, which spearheaded initial efforts for restoration through their own piece of history, adopt a heritage house project. Don Hermogenes Reyes Mansion. The Reyes House in Malolos, Bulacan was built by the couple Hermogenes and Teodora Reyes in 1904. Located along Calle Electricidad, now F.T. Reyes Street in Barangay Santo Niño, just one block away from the Malolos Cathedral, part of the Malolos Heritage Town, National Historical Landmark. Gobierno Militar de la Plaza. The Malolos Historic Town Center is a historic district located in the downtown or the old town center of the capital town of Malolos City, Bulacan, Philippines, commonly called Kamistisohan or Pariancillo District of Malolos. It was declared as such for its collection of Spanish and American-era houses and government place of the First Philippine Republic and the Malolos Constitution, and being the capital of the Philippines from 1898 to 1900s. The National Historical Institute, now the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, declared the downtown Malolos are officially a National Historical Landmark and Heritage Town on August 15, 2000. Don Antonio Bautista Mansion. Ancestral houses are one of Filipinos' remaining architectural links with their historical and cultural legacy. In the case of people of Malolos City, the capital of Bulacan, the houses along the Pariancillo district, the houses built there during the latter Spanish colonial period, are not merely indicators of landed wealth and family lineage, but also crucial reminders of the struggle towards political self-awareness and independence from foreign domination during the turn of previous century. These structures date from the mid-late 19th century to the early 1930s, and whose detailed catalog stylistic changes introduced through colonial contact with the West. Neoclassicism segues into Revival Baroque and Victorian ostentation, and then into Art Nouveau and elegance, and ends with Soviet geometric organic combination found in Art Deco. Don Ramon Gonzales de Leon House, ancestral house of Joey De Leon, an actor and TV host. This house was built in early 1900s and is modest creation of woodwork and architecture. It is designed specifically for our tropical weather and situated right by the river banks. No one lives in the house anymore, except for a caretaker and his family who were gracious enough to allow us in and check the interior and take photographs. I asked if we are okay to post the photos on the net and they said yes, and that Joy De Leon would be even like it, and that people will be able to appreciate the house and tangible memories of the past. The walls of the house were decorated with diplomas and sepia photographs of the residents of the past. There were photos of a relative with Emilio Aguinaldo and stalwarts of Malolos at the time of the First Philippine Republic. Joey's grandfather, Ramon Gonzales de Leon, was the first mayor of the Malolos and served between 1903 and 1905. Don Luis Oitangcoy Santos Mansion, the Good Doctor Home. The 1933 Luis Oitangcoy Santos House in Malolos, Bulacan, the previously visited several ancestral houses in the Pariancillo district directly west of the cathedral in Malolos, Bulacan. One of them was 1914 Paulino and Alberta Oitangcoy Santos House, the home of the de facto leader of the famed woman of Malolos. What we haven't done is visit the charming and elegant house diagonally across that. This was built in 1933 by the second of Paulina and Alberta's 9 children, Luis, born in 1893, and an eye, ear, nose, and throat specialist of considerable nationwide renown for most of the 20th century until he died in 1982. He didn't sign, inscribed into the stone of the fence right beside the main, certifies of the house and his profession. Don Arcadio Ejercito Mansion, Pariancillo Events Place. This pavilion was named after Calle Pariancillo de Malolos, a street of Spanish houses in the late 1800s located in the heart of Malolos, Bulacan. This street boasts of houses of prominent people like Don Arcadio Ejercito, Don Antonio Bautista, Erasto Carventes, and Faustino T. Chionga. Towner of this pavilion, to date the Parancillo House of Faustino T. Chionga was built in 1892, while this Parancillo Pavilion of Faustin. San Fernando Heritage Zone, San Fernando, Pampanga. Augusto P. Hizon House. The Augusto P. Hizon House is a heritage house in the city of San Fernando, Pampanga province of the Philippines. The house is located along Consonji Street in the city. Augusto P. Hizon Heritage House was unveiled by the representative of National Historical Commission of the Philippines, the city government of San Fernando, Pampanga, and the Hizon family. The house was declared a heritage house by the NHCP on July 21, 2010, bringing the number of NHCP declared houses in the San Fernando, Pampanga into 5. Dairit Cuyugan House. The Dairit Cuyugan House is a bahay na bato heritage house in the city of San Fernando in the province of Pampanga, Philippines. This ancestral house, which exemplifies the architecture prevalent during the American colonial period, was declared a heritage house by the National Historical Institute. Hinzon Hizon House. The Hinzon Hizon House is a heritage house in the city of San Fernando, Pampanga, Philippines. This bahay na bato of the Spanish colonial period was declared a heritage house by the National Historical Institute of 27th of January 2003. Hizon Singian House. Hizon Singian House was built in 1870 by the couple Don Anacleto Hizon, Gobernadorcillo of San Fernando from 1877 to 1879 and 1886 to 1887, and Victoria Singian de Miranda de Ocampo. Inherited by their daughter Victoria Hizon E. Singian, who was married to Godofredo Rodriguez Iabot from Bacolor. It was occupied during the 1896 revolution by the Spanish General Antonio Ruiz Cerarde, appropriated by the Japanese Imperial Army to serve as a military hospital and barracks from 1943 to 1944, and served as the headquarters of the American General Walter Kruger of 6th American Army during the Liberation period until the end of 1945. Inherited by their son, the late Jerry Catalino Rodriguez Ihizon, former president of Pampanga Sugar Development Company o Pasuedeco, who was married to Aurora Angeles. This bahay na bato of the Spanish colonial period was declared a heritage house by the National Historical Institute on January 27, 2003 by virtue beyond number 4, section 2003. Lazatin House. Lazatin House, located at A. Consonji Street, Barangay Santo Rosario, built in 1925 by the couple Serafin Lazatin E. Ocampo, sugar farmer and former president of SFELA-PCO, and Encarnacion Singian E. Torres. It was appropriated by the Japanese Imperial Army during the Second World War to serve as a resident of the 14th Army Commander of the Japanese Imperial Army, General Masaharu Homa in San Fernando, Pampanga. This ancestral house, which amplifies the architecture prevalent during the American colonial period, was declared a heritage house by the National Historical Institute on 27th of January by Resolution Number 6 of 2003. Casa Consulado. The house was constructed in 1926, a lot previously owned by Don Mariano Gorquetorena, following the bandihado style of bahay na bato. In 1936, the house is acquired by the family of Don Jose Intorralde and his wife Doña Dominga Alvaro. Licuaco Residence. Originally built in 1859, the house was purchased in the late 1940s by prominent Filipino lawyer and dignitary Marcial Licuaco from a European family who had fled the Japanese occupation in the Philippines. The house was declared a heritage house by the National Historical Commission on July 10, 2010. Mira Nila House. The Mira Nila House is a historic mansion building in Quezon City, Metro Manila, Philippines, situated along Mariposa Street in Cubao. The building, owned by the Benitez family, is a declared heritage house by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines and one and only two such declared house in Metro Manila, along with Liquiaco Heritage House in Santa Ana, Manila. The building currently houses a museum.
Region 4A. In the Calabarzon region, the Center for Ancestral Houses can be found in the streets of Taal, Balayan, and Calaca in Batangas, and Sariaya in the Quezon Province. The town center of Pila Laguna, with its Spanish and American era houses, was declared a National Historical Landmark in 2000. Gala Rodriguez House in Sariaya, Quezon. There are almost no words to describe the elegance and beauty of the Rodriguez ancestral mansion. However, some words that come to mind are romantic, timeless, and magical. Situated at number 44 Rizal Street, Sariaya, Quezon, in the Philippines, and constructed during the 1930s, this mansion represents a love that knows no bounds. The Rodriguez ancestral mansion was built specifically as a gift for the late Doña Gregoria from her husband, Doctor Isidro Rodriguez. One of the things that make this mansion so remarkable is the tragic love story that surrounds it. Only 2 days before she and her family were set to move into her dream home, the chronically ill Doña Gregoria died. Natalio Enriquez House, a 1931 Victorian Books Arts style mansion of former provincial governor Natalio Enriquez, designed by architect Andres Luna de San Pedro, located on the Pan-Philippine Highway in Sariaya, Quezon Province, Luzon Island in the Philippines, a cultural heritage monument in Quezon Province. Don Catalino Rodriguez Ancestral House. Don Catalino Rodriguez Ancestral House, also known as Villa Sariaya, is one of the three houses declared by the National Historical Institute of the Philippines as heritage houses in Sariaya, Quezon. It was owned by Don Catalino Rodriguez, Sariaya's town president from 1908 to 1909. Luz Katigbak House, Segunda Solis, the Casa de Segunda, also known as Luz Katigbak House, is a heritage house museum located along Rizal Street, Lipa City, Batangas. It was built during the 1860s and owned by Don Manuel Mitra de San Miguel Luz and Doña Katigbak, Dr. Jose Rizal's first love. Goko House. The Goko House was built in 1876 by husband and wife Juan Cabrera Goko and Lorenza de Umampo. The man of the house served as a treasurer for the revolutionary forces in Taal during the Spanish occupation, which earned him the trust of the townspeople. The house was restored in 1999 after Taal was declared a National Heritage Town by the National Historical Institute. Ilagan de la Rosa House. Ilagan de la Rosa Ancestral House is a house in Batangas located on Calle Jose P. Rizal. Ilagan de la Rosa Ancestral House is situated nearby to the Memorial Felipe Agoncillo y Encarnacion 1859 to 1941 historical marker and Di Maano House. Bahay na Bato Oleta Family. Bahay na Bato in Tagalog, literally House of Stone, also known in Visayan as Balay na Bato or Balay nga Bato, in Spanish as Casa Filipino, is a type of building originating during the Philippines Spanish colonial period. It is an updated version of the traditional Bahay Kubo of the Christianized lowlanders, known for its use of masonry in its construction, using stone and brick materials and later synthetic concrete rather than just full organic materials of the former style. Region 4B. Declared Heritage House in Mimaropa Region, Casa Narvas in Boac. It was built in 1920 by Elias Narvas, a local coconut trader in those bygone years, and was called Bahay na Bato, also characterized by its massive red hardwood floor, baluster sostre azotea of Spanish and Chinese influence. Its design include capice-shelled sliding windows and stained glass walls. Mariano Ramos Ancestral House. The Mariano Ramos Ancestral House is the home of the late Mariano Ramos, one of the first appointed president municipals of Bacolod, Philippines. The house was built in the 1930s with its architecture being a combination of Castilian and Tuscan styles. It comprises three stories including the tower room, known as the Torre or Mirador. Talisay City, Mariano Ledesma Lacson, known as the Ruins. The ruins are the remains of the ancestral home mansion of the family of Don Mariano Ledesma Lacson and Maria Braga Lacson. It is situated in Talisay, Negros Occidental, Philippines. The mansion was built in the early 1900s and inspired by Italian architecture. The ruins was the ancestral mansion of the family of a wealthy sugar businessman, Don Mariano Ledesma Lacson, built on a 440-hectare sugar plantation in Talisay City, Negros Occidental, in the early 1900s, in memory of his Portuguese wife, Maria Braga Lacson, who died during the birth of their eighth child. During the Second World War, Filipino guerrillas burned it down as a countermeasure to prevent the invading Japanese forces from using it as a military headquarters. It burned for 3 days. The intention was to burn it to the ground. Silay City. Silay City, Negros Occidental in the Negros Island region, has the most number of declared heritage houses in the country. Alejandro Amecazura House. Alejandro Amecazura Ancestral House is a heritage house owned by the family of Alejandro Amecazura in Silay City in the province of Negros Occidental, Philippines. Because of its cultural, architectural, and historical significance, it is one of the recognized and declared heritage houses of the Philippines by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Angel Araneta Ledesma House. The Angel Araneta Ledesma Ancestral House is one of the heritage houses in Silay City, Negros Occidental, Philippines, belonging to Angel Araneta Ledesma and his wife Rizalina Havilona Lopez, also known as Balay Verde or the Greenhouse. It is strategically located along Plaridel Street near the Silay City Hall, the San Diego Pro Cathedral, Police Department, and the Puericulture Center. The Angel Araneta Ledesma Ancestral House was built in 1933 using the logs that were available in the lumber yard business of Angel Ledesma. The two-story house combines the colonial plantation architecture and the American clapboard style that was popular in the revivalist era of the American period. In 1992, the family sold the house to an individual who later sold it to the government of Silay. Eventually, it houses the Office of Culture, Arts, and Tourism of City of Silay.
Binita Hara House. Binita Hara Ancestral House is a museum in Silay, Negros Occidental, located on Don Generoso Oso, Gamboa Street. Binita Hara Ancestral House is situated nearby to the community center, Barangay 3 Hall and the Town Hall, Silay City Hall. Bernardino Lopez Halandoni Ancestral House. The Bernardino Halandoni Museum, also known as the Bernardino Halandoni House, located along Rizal Street, Silay City in the province of Negros Occidental, Philippines, is the original residence of the late Don Bernardino and Doña Isabel Halandoni. The museum is also known as the Pink House because of its conspicuous pink paint that easily grabs attention. Don Bernardino and Doña Isabel Lopez Ledesma were originally from Haro, Iloilo City and migrate to Silay. Negros Occidental, where they eventually settled and raised their children. 3. In Silay City, along the main highway, they built their house, which depicts the typical opulent houses during the early 20th century. The house was completed in 1908. Delphin Ledesma House. This heritage house still follows the classic Visayan bahay na bato proportions with a double media agua roof and the floors, first and second, have grills and a discreet main door. Built in 1907, this century-old home was owned by my great-grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Delphin Ledesma. It is a it is a two-story house with a lap pool, a bathhouse, and a beautiful and spacious garden with old and giant trees. Digna Locsin Kunsing House. Digna Locsin Kunsing Ancestral House is a two-story heritage house owned by the family of Digna Locsin, Kunsing in Silay City in the province of Negros Occidental, the Philippines. Because of its cultural, architectural, and or historical significance, it is one of the recognized and declared heritage houses of the Philippines by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines.
Generoso Reyes Gamboa House, formerly one of the traditional heritage houses, also considered to be the first wing house of the Philippines. It is built in 1898. The Vega Ancestral House is one of the first transition bahay na bato inspired houses that have remained standing and have witnessed the different colonial periods of the Philippines through its estimated 200 years of existence. Sculpted wooden atlases are perhaps the most interesting feature of this house that is located in Poblacion, Balingasag, Misamis Oriental. Sculpted wooden atlases known as utiot in the Visayan language provide support to the second floor protrusion of the house. This house is one important structure in the locality that tourists usually come to visit. Notable personalities like Emilio Aguinaldo and Sergio Osmeña had visited this house. The German Luxin and Son Ancestral House is located in Central Silay City, Negros Occidental. It is one of the first ancestral houses that have been opened for overnight stay. There are only 4 rooms in the house that dates back to 1930s. In 1993, the house was officially labeled a heritage house by the National Historical Institute. The German Laxon Gaston Ancestral House. This house represents an interesting combination of bahay na bato and American colonial style. The horizontal clapboard sidings are inspired by the American architecture, but the capicel's windows on the ground floor and the ventanas with a wooden baluster are very Spanish. The Jose Cortez Luxin Ancestral House is a 2-story heritage house owned by the family of Jose Cortez Luxin, a Filipino doctor and a politician in Silay City in the province of Negros Occidental. Because of its cultural, architectural, and or historical significance, it is one of the recognized and declared heritage houses of the Philippines by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. The Jose Ledesma House, or the Jose Petong Ledesma Ancestral House, has been standing strong in Silay City since 1917 and has provided a warm home to the occupants throughout the years. Capitan Marciano Montelibano Lacson House is popularly known as the Kapihan ng Silay, where men would gather to exchange gossip and cockfight. The Antonio del Rama Luxine House, this place which dates back to the Spanish colonial period, it is the oldest house in Silay. It follows the typical Visayan bahay na bato constructions and comes complete with the ventaniles and sliding capiz windows. It also the ancestral home of the national artist of architecture, Leandro Luxine. The Manuel Severino Hofilenia House is the residence of the late Manuel Severino Hofilenia and his family located on Cinco de Noviembre Street, Silay City, in the province of Negros Occidental. The home was built by Hofilenia for his wife, Hilda Ledesma Hohelia, a former Miss Silay, and their 9 children. The Maria Ledesma Goles Ancestral House is a heritage house by the family of Maria Ledesma Goles in Silay City and the province of Negros Occidental. It was declared a historical landmark by Board Resolution No. 3, dated April 6, 1993, of the National Historical Institute of the Republic of the Philippines. The Soledad and Maria Montalibano Lacson Ancestral House is a two-story heritage house owned by the family of Montalibano Lacson's sister, Soledad and Maria, in Silay City in the province of Negros Occidental. Because of its cultural, architectural, and/or historical significance, it is one of the recognized and declared heritage houses of the Philippines by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. The house was painted white and red, and it was built in early 90s and was declared a heritage house, one on over 20 in Silay, under the board resolution of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. The Vicente Conlo Montalibano House is the oldest house in Silay. The house dates back to the Spanish colonial period to the early American period, as it follows the typical Bisayan bahay na bato construction with the ventaneles and sliding capis windows on the outside. A central main entrance on the ground floor is typical of such houses of this era. The Balay Negrins, also a Victor Fernandez Gaston ancestral house, is a museum in Silay City, Negros Occidental. Showcasing the lifestyle of the late 19th century Negrin sugar baron, it is notable for being the first museum to be established in the province of Negros Occidental. Region 6 Heritage Houses in Western Visayas Region. The Lopez Heritage House, or the Mansion de Lopez, otherwise known as the Nellis Garden, is a national heritage house built in 1928 located at Haro, Iloilo City by the Ilonggo statesman Don Vicente Lopez and his wife, Doña Elena Hafiliana. The mansion was named after the couple's eldest daughter, Nela Lupis y Hafiliana. The Roca Encantada House, one of Guimaraães' famous landmarks, is the summer house of the Lopez clan, built atop the hill, also known as the Roca Encantada or Enchanted Rock. The house was built in 1910 in honor of Doña Presentacion Hafiliana Lopez. Region 7 Heritage Houses in Central Visayas Region. The Balay Natesa Heritage House. The house was built by Don Roman Sarmiento, a mestizo Sanglay from Cebu's Parian district. He was a Karkar alias recorded Gobernador Silio, and records also show that he was the foreman who supervised the construction of St. Catherine of Alexandria Church in the 1870s. The Yap San Diego Ancestral House in Parian, Cebu City, is said to be the first Chinese house built outside of China. It was built during the country's Spanish colonial era when the Chinese were required to live in the Parians of a city. Cebu's Parians was founded in 1590 after the arrival of Chinese traders, often referred as Balay nga Bato o Kahoy by the locals. The ancestral house is constructed out of the coral stones and wood. It was built between 1675 and 1700 and was originally owned by a Chinese merchant named Don Juan Yap together with his wife Doña Maria Floredo. Presently, it is considered one of the oldest existing residential structures in the country and proves that the Parian district in Cebu City was a bustling barangay where houses are often designed with a second story. This abode was instantly handed down to Doña Maria's great-great-grandson, Val Mancao San Diego, in 2008. The Silva House was co-owned by the Hope brothers, Benito Silva and Padre Anastasio del Coro, the founder of the St. Catherine School and the builder of the church. It was transferred from an old site Naga to its present site in the late 1800s. The house is not much from the outside, but it's perhaps the most intact of the houses in Karkar. The house had been featured in Filipino style as the painted house of Karkar, for its inside walls looking like a wallpaper when in fact it is painted. The Silva house originally belonged to a priest who was assigned to Karkar for a long time. Ownership was transferred to Dr. Nemesio S. Silva. It was declared a heritage house by the National Historical Institute in 2010. Region 8 heritage houses in Eastern Visayas region. The Opos Ancestral House, now serving as the Southern Leyte Provincial Library. Region 10, heritage houses in the Northern Mindanao region. The Macapagal-Macariag Ancestral House is the most popular historical landmark in the city of Iligan. The house boasts of rich history and grand style. It contains several precious items and memorabilia of the Macapagal and Arroyo families. Different pictures of the Macapagal-Arroyo family are found here. Notable pictures are Gloria together with Bill Kenton, baby Gloria together with her father, and the wedding of Gloria and Mike Arroyo. The rooms of Diosdado and his wife, Gloria and Gloria's grandmother still look very nice and are well maintained. The house also symbolizes the modernity of the governance during the 1950s. It is a fitting home for those whose lives were influential in the community like Iligan City. Many locals, mostly students from nearby provinces, are eager to see this place for their school projects or research works. It is usually included in the itinerary of the school field trips.
Region 13, Atiga Ancestral House, an old Spanish architecture house. The most prominent among them is the Atiga Ancestral Home, the biggest and most beautifully preserved house, located at Caraga. Built in 1904, the Atiga House was the home of the Atiga family that originated from the Spanish friar Father Pedro Garcia. It was built by a revolutionary leader named Don Andres Atiga. Since the family does not divide properties, the house grew from one wing to many more. Today, it has grown to 36 rooms and a garden. The house's garden was once a swampy area where there were found. Lucky for the Atigas, however, a flood covered the swampy area and eventually became suitable for a garden. The interior is a mixture of Filipino, Chinese, and European styles. The doors of the rooms are well blended with the walls, so an outsider will not notice it immediately, perfect during the war. Once the doors are opened, you will be amazed at how big the rooms are. Although this house doesn't look that big on the outside, it is huge once you get inside. Although a lot of old and antique stuff is found here, modern furniture and decorations are also present because there are Atigas still living in this house. It is also used to accommodate friends and family members who visit Cabadbaran City now and then. Casa Alboro in Cabadbaran, Agusan del Norte. This house, built by Valentin Alboro in 1935 for his wife Crispina Dagani, was converted into a pension house in 1987. So if you don't have a place to stay in Cabadbaran, this house will be a best choice as it offers cozy and affordable accommodation.